After all, there are many people watching from the sideline. Many people abroad have watched this drama of the students sit-in Tiananmen Square from the very beginning. Television has brought that image all over the world. The students may not have won the heart of Deng Xiaoping, but I think they won the heart of the world. And to see this brutal force, which again is shown by television, this universal medium that makes us all one, it's a question of how China can regain the lost ground, a very important question. And then there are the economic consequences. Will investors come forward as they did before and put their money into joint ventures with China? And what about Hong Kong? Will Hong Kong, which already was wary about coming into China when the British regime ends, will they placidly accept that? Or will they too rise and set up an independent regime? And what about the relationship with Taiwan? A relationship between China and Taiwan, which had been growing warmer, closer, a lot of investment, lots of hopes on the future. Can these things be maintained? The question marks which are left by the events of June 4th are greater than the events themselves.
On June 4th, 1989, the 7 o'clock news on China Central TV reported the government's position on the events in Tiananmen Square.
各位观众，这次新闻联播节目的主要内容有：
戒严部队指挥部发言人称，
从昨天开始，北京的事态急转直下，近1个多月来极少数人制造的动乱，已发展成为一场反革命暴乱。戒严部队在首都工人和市民的配合下，采取坚决措施平息这场暴乱。今晨5时左右，戒严部队进驻天安门广场，广场上的学生和其他人同时撤走。
The men and their missions, war and heroes, Hamburger Hill, the Dirty Dozen, the Dirty Dozen Next Mission, and Iron Eagle 2. Saturday Showcase, War and Heroes, Saturday nights at 9, World Channel.
A bloody Sunday, June 4th. With those words, I ended my report, leaving many questions unanswered. In order to understand the events of that day, in order to understand where China stands today, one must go back over the 40 years of the history of the Chinese People's Republic, a history which is marked with crises, with intrigues, with great confrontations, with false starts, with mysteries. One has to see the struggle that went on over that period of time. One has to follow the personalities who made the Chinese People's Republic. And when one has done that, then I think many of the events of June 4th become clear, and we are able better to evaluate the progress that was made over those 40 years, the trials, the tribulations, and what has to come in the future. I think from the past, we not only understand the present, but we have clues to the future of China.
The People's Republic of China came into being in 1949. From that time began a great experiment to rebuild the world's most populous country, a country impoverished by a history of foreign control and civil war.
During the night, some rain had fallen, but by early day it ceased, and the day began to clear. The skies grew more blue. It turned out to be quite a fine day, but there were puddles in Tiananmen Square and mud from the new construction. By the time Mao Zedong appeared at the Gate of Heavenly Peace, it was a really good day. He appeared there to announce the formation of the People's Republic of China. Some 300,000 people stood in that square, waiting to hear his words. They were breathless as they waited. Mao was not alone as he stood at the top of Tiananmen Square. With him were his associates.
Vice President Zhu De, from peasant origins, an old warrior with whom Mao Zedong had fought side by side from the beginning. Premier Zhou Enlai, educated in France and the Soviet Union, he was in charge of all diplomatic negotiations and never deviated in his loyalty to Mao Zedong. Liu Shaoqi, destined to be president of China, a skilled civil servant, but came into conflict with Mao, who was far different in temperament. Song Qingling, widow of Dr. Sun Yat-sen. Madame Song was also on the gate as vice president, though she was not herself a communist.
It's a commentary on man's hopes and fears that almost everyone remembers the day as the finest that they had ever experienced. They don't remember the mud puddles in Tiananmen. They don't remember the disorder of the new construction. All they remember are clear skies, fine breezes. And indeed, those breezes had swept away the moistness by the time Mao appeared on the Gate of Heavenly Peace. He was accompanied by his associates in the great endeavor to establish communism. This was the same platform from which China's emperors, through the dynasties, had proclaimed their new decrees. Mao was born and raised in a little village called Shaoshan, about 40 miles from Changsha. It might have been 1,000 miles. It was so deep in the Chinese countryside. And there, he learned to understand the Chinese peasant. He acquired absolute pitch for the Chinese peasant and his moods and his needs and his wants. The great influences on Mao at that time in his family were his father, whom he hated. His father, a money-grubbing, tight-fisted farmer who was pulling himself up by main force and exploitation of peasants. And his mother, the very opposite, a devout Buddhist,